answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Get Down to Business with Shalom Klein, the show for business powered by Mirabali Insurance, Sunday evenings at 6.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Senate leaders announce a potential breakthrough in the quote-unquote government shutdown stalemate. Quote-unquote government shutdown. Again, we're talking about the temporary, ultimately paid vacation of about a fifth of the federal workforce. And this is end of days to listen to the D.C. Press Corps report on it this go around, just as they have every other of the 24 go-rounds in the last 50 years. Well, it's really tiresome.
They were interviewing Tia, mom of 4 who needs her paycheck. That's what they featured.
Most important thing is that the TSA agents in Kyiv get their paychecks from us. That's what I'm more focused on.
Exactly.
This deal that was cobbled together between Pagliacci and Mr. Freeze, 19 Senate Republicans voted against it, including our next guest, Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, Republican. He joins us now. Senator Johnson, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, guys, I hope you're doing well.
So you and a lot of other well-known conservatives on the Republican caucus in the Senate, the Mike Lees and the Mike Brauns and the Ted Cruzes and the Josh Hawleys voted against this deal. Why don't you want first responders in Kyiv to get paid?
Well, first of all, I don't want a government shutdown. That's why I was supporting getting a vote on a bill that I passed as chairman of the Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee, Preventing Government Shutdown Act, which would set up rolling 14-day CR so we never have to go through this nonsense again. But I just refuse to participate in this very well-honed process. Listen, D.C. is grotesquely dysfunctional, but there is a very well-honed process for mortgaging our children's future, and we're seeing it play out, right now. And the process is don't bring up appropriation bills through the entire fiscal year. Start bringing them up, a month before the end of the fiscal year. There's no chance of getting them passed. And then, talk about, the chaos of the government shutdown. And you described that. I think last time around, about 10% of the government actually shut down. Everything else kept operating. We made sure that military people got paid. Mm-hmm. It's not the calamity that they're portraying it to. But anyway, you use that potential chaos to get enough people to agree to a CR that just happens to run out, in this case, the week before Thanksgiving recess, which probably would be renewed till the day before Christmas Eve or Christmas Eve. And, again, this is what leadership does. It's bipartisan. It's the uniparty in action here. And then they'll drop a multi-thousand-page omnibus spending bill on Congress, in the House, in the Senate, and say, we got to pass this, or you're not going to be able to go home for Christmas. And then enough people cave, and you pass a 3,000-page bill. Nobody reads it. The moment's done, the government's funded. Nobody looks at it. Nobody does oversight on the grotesque amounts of spending, how much is wasted. They just move on to the next year, and it's just lather, rinse, repeat. Don't pass a budget. Don't pass appropriation bills. Wait till September 30th and do it all over again. So, again, this is my 13th year watching this, and I'm simply not going to participate in it.
Well, point of contention with a number of congressional members, including Matt Gaetz, is they don't want any more funding to go to Ukraine. What is your position on that?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. I think it's beyond time when we need to bring that war to an end. Listen, Putin's a war criminal. I think most Americans are highly sympathetic with Ukrainians who are fighting for their children, their families, their freedom, their territory. So nobody wants to aid and abet Putin, but the only way this ends, we're not going to defeat Putin. He can't afford to lose. It's existential to him. He's got nuclear weapons. He will not lose this war. So what's the objective of this war? You're not going to push him out. You're going to have to settle with him. And every day that goes by that this war doesn't end, the final sentiment is worse and worse and worse because more Ukrainians and Russian conscripts get killed. More of Ukraine gets destroyed, which has to be rebuilt. So, rather than trying to egg this thing on by, adding more fuel to the flames and continue to fund this, we should quietly be moving toward figuring out some level of settlement. By the way, I was the only member of Congress at Zelensky's inauguration. I met with him. I went back there shortly after that. He wanted peace back then. He was willing to do a peace deal with Putin for East Ukraine, in Crimea. He wanted peace. I'm not sure what happened in the intervening years.
Oh, well, don't worry about rebuilding Ukraine because Penny Pritzker is
Oh,
going to be
that's
on the
right.
job. So that's going to go fine. It's going to go as well as Superior Bank went under her leadership here in suburban Chicago. It also seems to me that with respect to Ukraine, the argument for the proponents of continued sort of open-ended support that this is a domino, and then he'll go to the Baltics, he'll go to Poland, got undermined by Poland a little bit. Now you can say Poland is making a strategic mistake, but the Poles are pulling out of this open-ended support of Ukraine.
Well, of course, the domino effect, that's been the excuse used, certainly going back to Vietnam. Kennedy had it before he was assassinated, gave an order to pull out of Vietnam, not engage in the war. What did the Vietnam War ever get us other than 58,000 dead Americans? Did that improve our standing in the world? We as Americans have to look back in history honestly. And I'm not sure that our government is giving us an honest history of any of this. But we need to retrospectively look at what has all of our foreign entanglements, all these wars, has it improved our standing in the world? Has it created greater peace and stability? Why is China arming to the extent that they're arming? Were they done that? Were it not for some of the things we had done? Again, we should be asking these questions. We don't. Instead, it's going to be a domino effect. We've got to go to this war, or it's going to get much worse. I don't know. It could get worse. We could have a nuclear holocaust. But in terms of instability in the world, how much worse could it get?
Meanwhile, back at home, and the situation not just on the border anymore, but of course in major sanctuary cities around the country, Jason Owens, the new Border Patrol chief, had this to say recently about the situation at our southern border.
In terms of flow and the threats that we're seeing with fentanyl and with the criminal organizations that are our adversary, it's about as bad as I've ever seen it.
How sustainable is this, your ability to respond to this amount of people at the border?
This isn't sustainable. This is up and down the system. Everybody is overwhelmed, even the government of Mexico, which have been great partners for us. The U.S. Border Patrol, a lot of times our facilities are already over capacity.
And the administration's response is what exactly at present?
Well, it's not even a problem. It's not a crisis. It's just a challenge. And it's a challenge that they claim to be meeting by getting more efficient at encountering, processing, dispersing now probably about 6 million people, which, over half the states have a population less than 6 million people, okay? That's the magnitude of the problem. This is a complete disaster. It's been a complete disaster ever since Biden took office. But the mainstream media largely covers it up. They're not reporting on this. No, this is horrific. The sex trafficking. How do you think these little girls pay their $7,000 to $10,000 human trafficking fee? They get forced into the sex trade. The fentanyl flowing in and killing people on the streets of America. The other involuntary human servitude. The dead bodies in the desert. This is a complete disaster. You don't have a sovereign nation if you don't have a secure border. And don't ask me why Democrats are so wedded to an open border. I think it's pretty obvious. They want these people coming in being very appreciative of Democrats letting them in this country, and so they can get their votes in the future and completely destroy this country.
It's to increase the Democratic base. There's got to be no other reason.
Is there any conversation going on among your Senate colleagues, particularly across the aisle, about doing anything about this, or is it just see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly not holding hearings on this. I'll give Kirsten Sinema credit as a subcommittee chair. She's at least held a couple hearings on this. But the main committee chairman there, Gary Peters, Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee I used to chair, I held like 36 hearings on the border. We haven't held one. They're not interested in this. Let's face it. Democratic governance does nothing to build; it only destroys. I mean, if you're asked to develop a strategy to destroy this country, you'd be hard pressed to come up with a better game plan than what Biden and company are implementing. The open borders, the 4-year high inflation, war on fossil fuel, the embarrassing, dangerous surrender in Afghanistan that has emboldened our enemies, I think probably led almost directly to the invasion of Ukraine. I mean, this is an utter disaster. How could anybody approve of his job? I mean, what's wrong with these 20, 30% that are still holdouts? Oh, we think he's doing a good job. His governance has been a disaster. Democrat governance is a disaster.
How's decorum going in the Senate? Have you switched from suits to like a
Hoodies.
Packers pullover, or what are you wearing to work these days?
Yeah, Badgers hoodie.
No, I think most senators have enough respect for the institution, even as dysfunctional as it is, that no, we're not taking the bait. I'm glad to see that your Senator Dick Durbin split with Senator Schumer and wants to recreate the standards. I know Joe Manchin is trying to do that as well. This is, again, what other standards do the Democrats want to destroy? I mean, is nothing sacrosanct? Is nothing sacred to them? Do they have to tear down everything? Seems like they do.
Yeah, it is an interesting sort of symbolic play by the Democrats, consistent with their overall disposition towards all things American, traditional traditions and institutions and otherwise. Yeah, it is rather symbolic, isn't it?
It's just let's destroy.
The border situation, maybe that has been subordinated to this bigger issue. Axios, as usual, on the job with really important news reporting. There is a whole of government effort, it would appear, to prevent President Biden from tripping. We've got physical therapists. He's got new sneakers. Maybe he'll be wearing the Fetterman garb soon. We don't know. The exercises for balance, proprioceptive maintenance maneuvers the president is involved in so he can walk the picket line with UAW workers. The capacity, competence, confidence. What's the scuttlebutt about Biden's capacity for the job in addition to the substance of the job that's being done in his name?
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. This is the way the mainstream media creates a shiny object to distract America from the disaster that is Democrat governance. I mean, so they don't have to cover the open border. They don't have to cover the war on fossil fuel. They don't have to cover 40-year high inflation. So they focus on this. I think most people in America, and this is borne out by polls, realize that President Biden, A, is physically and mentally unfit for this enormously challenging job, as well as now more people are, more than 60% believe that he's corrupt. That he absolutely was involved in Hunter's businesses, was aware of it, and probably actively involved. So he's unfit because he's corrupt. He's been head of the Biden crime family for decades. And now he's, again, I take no joy in this. He's deteriorating. That's what happens when you age. There's nothing good about getting old that I found out. And when you get over 80, it starts happening pretty rapidly. And we are unfortunately witnessing this in the President of the United States. He's just unfit for office.
Your reference to the impeachment inquiry afoot, I know you're on the Senate side. The House has to do its work first. But as you're watching, and I know you and Grassley have been involved in unearthing a lot of this too, which has been important. But as you're watching what the House is doing, are you impressed? Are you satisfied with the effort underway in the House?
Yeah, I think James Comer and Jim Jordan have done a really good job adding to the record that Grassley and I laid out. We had more than enough evidence that it would have been covered, should have convinced America never to elect this guy. But combined with the subpoenas they're starting to issue, that the whistleblowers have come forward, we're getting a lot more pieces of the puzzle. But again, it's very clear. I mean, the Biden family has been corrupt for decades. They've been, lining their own pockets. And again, it's obvious. I mean, why would anybody pay Hunter Biden and the family tens of millions of dollars? For what? I mean, what value do they bring? I'm manufacturing. You got to produce $200 million worth of product to make $10 million. It takes a lot of work, a lot of capital investment. All that Hunter had was selling the Biden name and the influence. It's obvious. It's corrupt. And once again, the mainstream media is complicit in covering up that corruption.
He is Republican Senator from Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Have a great morning.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Is your prostate secretly being destroyed without you knowing it? All the ads for these prostate pills like Super Beta Prostate, Saw Palmetto, ProstaStream, Prostagenics, and others want to know which pills work and which are garbage? Now you can. Get a free copy of the new guide, Prostate Secrets, that pulls back the curtain on the prostate pill industry. Learn what is really in these pills. Which pill has over 987 adverse event reports filed against it with the FDA? It's shocking. Learn the one food to avoid that is a prostate killer, and discover the 3 so-called health foods that destroy your prostate. Get your free copy at prostatesecrets.com. That's prostatesecrets.com. This free guide will show you how to end your prostate problems without drugs or surgery, 5 important things to do to protect your prostate, and much more. Warning, this guide is controversial and may be offensive to some readers as it pulls no punches. So go to